So hello everyone, welcome to the EEP Club and EEP Alumni Network Computer Science panel. So we have Andrew, Christina, and Oz with us here today, and they will be describing some of their experiences and answering some of our questions. For a quick reminder, could everyone introduce themselves with their name, major, graduation year, current occupation, and something interesting about yourself? I will introduce myself first, I guess. My name is Hope Hua. I am a fourth year biochemistry major, and something interesting about myself is that I like to draw. And our other facilitator is Sasha.
Yes, hello. I'm Sasha Fisher. I am the YouTube chair for the EEP Club, and something interesting about myself is that I know how to juggle. Okay, so whoever would like to go next, you could just unmute and then go.
Sure. I'm Andrew Post. I graduated in 2007, double major in computer science and math. I was the EEP Club president at one point, and my current occupation is I'm a front-end software developer. I make websites. For the last 5 years, I've been working for HeroForge.com. It's a website where you can make a Dungeons and Dragons or other role-playing game character, 3D print it, or sell you the digital file if you want to 3D print it yourself. That's the basic idea. But I'm a senior professional, senior front-end web developer. And something interesting about me, I guess, is I am currently at a live-action role-playing event. I am currently in costume. I apologize for the tent and possibly shaking.
Oh my god, I'm so jealous.
Which event is it?
Oh, what's that, Hope?
Sorry, which event is it?
So I'm staff for the Twin Mask LARP, which is in East Los Angeles. And it's an all ages event if other EEPsters were interested, but we should probably focus on careers for today.
Right, that's some really cool information. Thank you for sharing. Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
Yeah, I can go next. Also, I apologize in advance. I have like a cold, so if I sound weird, that's why. I'm Christina de Cesare, and I was an EEP student from 2006 to 2011. I graduated with a BS in computer science and a minor in math that has been utterly useless. My current occupation. So I am currently the lead engineer for a startup. We're a company of like 10 people, and we do remote sensing specifically in the field of snow water hydrology. So we use an airplane with expensive, fancy science instruments to look at the ground and measure the snow, and then do all sorts of cool science stuff with the data. We'll get into it later, but I'm not really a developer much anymore. I'm at this point kind of a jack of all trades. So. Oh, an interesting thing. I'm sorry, I forgot. I'm not feeling super great. I am hopefully becoming an Italian citizen relatively soon, a dual citizen, and that would be really cool. I might live in Italy someday, and I'm learning Italian towards that end.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Very cool. I'm Oz. I'm way younger than these two boomers. I'm actually just right out of age. I don't know what I'm doing here. But I'm a full stack developer at an ad tech corporation. So not quite as interesting as these two interesting guys. But I definitely had a different experience in EEP from them. So I think I might be able to add something there. And interesting thing, I don't know. I'm way better at dancing than I have any right to be, for some reason.
That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
What's that, Andrew?
I didn't know that about you.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
All right. Yeah.
Okay. So, first of all, thank you all for being here. And it's very great listening to your experiences. And we also have a few questions that some computer science majors now wanted to input. So we'll be asking those too. So let's just start off with the general question. Why did you pursue a computer science major? And did you consider any other majors?
You guys want to go like in order or just random? Okay.
Whoever wants to start.
Yeah.
I would just, unless there's a question that someone's like passionate about or wants to jump into, maybe we just keep the same order. Me, Christina, Oz. Does that work for you guys?
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Cool. So, why did I pursue a computer science major? So at first I declared as a physics major because both my parents were big on physics, and it seemed natural to me to just do what my parents wanted me to do at first. And then thankfully through the process of EEP, I learned, oh no, I don't have to just do that. I can individuate and do other stuff. So I honestly switched to computer science classes as a minor first, because the classes were usually in the afternoon instead of in the mornings, like physics. And I had a few other friends in EEP who were like, oh, take this 2 o'clock class instead of designing. I went into computer science knowing really nothing about computer science before Computer Science 101. And I was surprised by how much I enjoyed the coursework. It was kind of like math, but the computer kind of helps you cheat and look up your own answers. It was part of the fun. And I ended up in computer science and applied math because my advisor and the former EEP director pointed out, you took 2 years of physics. Like, those aren't going to help you with a computer science degree, but they get you a lot of credits towards math degree also. Take these 3 extra classes and you can complete that too. So I took 5 years. I didn't figure out computer science as a major until I was almost a senior.
Wow, it seems like you have some overlap with what Christina shared as well.
Yeah, definitely. Some of this about Andrew, I forgot actually, even though we know each other very well. I also started as a physics major. My process of switching to CS was a bit different, although also kind of late in the game for me. I don't think I officially changed my major until my junior year. As a kid, I liked space a lot. I thought, oh, I'll be a physics major. Cal State LA doesn't have an astrophysics program, so that's the closest I can get. I didn't like it. It's the short answer. I feel like, at the time, I felt like I spent a lot of time and energy focusing on physics and like really trying to get A's in those classes, which I only partly succeeded at. It was hard. And then after the first year of really trying to make physics work, I remember I was meeting with my physics department advisor at the time, and he was explaining to me the process for kind of choosing classes as an upperclassman in physics. And he explained it to me literally as a spiral, like that you would kind of at the lower level take some classes and then circle back to those and just do a more advanced version and then yet another more advanced version of that. Well, and then you get your PhD. And I was like, okay, I don't want that. That doesn't sound fun to me. I feel like I'm never going to get anywhere with this. I'm not going to learn anything more than I know today, which is very little. And then honestly, I had a bit of a crisis for a while and I didn't know what to major in. I thought about doing a math major, and then what do you do with that? And honestly, I'd been avoiding CS because I knew so many friends in EEP who were also CS majors, and I was just like, well, that's their thing. It's not for me. And then eventually one of said friends was like, well, what about CS? Why are you not just doing that. I was like, you know what? It's a great idea. I know this is not like an amazing story. I kind of just picked it hoping it would work, and it did. You know, I realized as a kid that I liked messing around with computers a lot. I liked building, you know, putting hardware together, building at the time very simple PCs. I learned HTML back when it was very ugly, to make my MySpace page and my Neopets page. And
Back
yeah,
when the
I don't know, it
dinosaurs
just
roamed
fit.
the earth.
What's that?
I said back when the dinosaurs roamed the earth.
Yeah, exactly. No, but and I'm not the only person my age who has attributed Neopets to like their reason for getting into CS. So I mean, it's a real thing. But anyway, yeah, that's my story.
Thank you for sharing.
I'm kind of closer to the Minecraft generation, so that's how I kind of got into coding. But I knew way before I got into EEP that I wanted to go into CS. It was kind of the perfect thing for me. And I kind of just I just kind of went through EEP knowing exactly what I wanted to do the whole time, which I feel like is kind of rare. So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you for sharing. Okay, so our next question is, what characteristics do you think are needed or helpful for a computer science major?
Well, I'm gonna slightly twist the question because it's been so long since I was a student, but I can talk generally about what characteristics are good to stick with computer science into your professional career. Because a little bit being a student and then working a job you're rewarded for slightly different things. But I'd say that it really helps if you enjoy making something. If you get some joy out of, you know, having created something that wasn't there before. So it's an engineering profession. In theory, it's math. It's you know, there's right answers and wrong answers for some stuff, but it can also be fairly creative. So when Oz was saying he was part of the Minecraft generation, when Christina was saying that she was motivated by Neopets, what we're all referring to is when we were teenagers, there was some platform, there's some tool, there's some game that our peers cared about. And in order to have a better version of a Neopets store or a better version of a Minecraft server, there's this tantalizing, you know, information on the internet of if you just learn these spells, if you can cast this program in the right way, you can be the envy of your friends. And that's the allure that drags a lot of people into computer science. I want to make my website do this thing. How did they do that? That's cool. So definitely a part of you, I think, has to want to make something. I'd say that another thing that makes you a good computer science major is if you're a little lazy. And I don't mean like, you know, unwilling to work when you care about something, but if you want to find a way to do things easier. Because a lot of computer science, you can do this the hard way, or if you learn a little bit and you get outside of your comfort zone a little bit, you can find a way to do it easier. So that process of like, you know, can I do it better? And having that motivation come from, can I do it better and make it easier on myself or make it easier on someone else? That's one of the personality traits that I think makes computer scientists a little more laid back than, you know, your doctors or your lawyers who famously can't get away with being so lazy.
I agree with all of that, but I have a follow-up. I guess I am much more of a perfectionist. Maybe not more than you or anyone else here. That's not a competition. I just mean, I don't. Yeah, okay, that's fair. And I don't consider myself to be lazy in that way. So the things that I wrote down, okay, first of all, I got the list of questions and I actually wrote answers to them. So if that tells you anything right there, I'm looking at our other two panelists. I know you guys didn't do this, but I think attention to detail is important. And as Post, sorry, I'm going to call him Post because that's his name to me. As Post said, some of what I'm going to say, a lot of what I'm going to say is more about being in a career than being a student, probably, because it's been more than a decade since I graduated now. But I really feel like being organized, having attention to detail, like those are, I would say, two really critical components of succeeding in the career, and maybe to a lesser extent in the major, and being self-motivated. And that, I think, was hard for me to learn at first. But once you graduate and get into a job in this field, I mean, it's very different depending on what kind of company you work for, but you may well be sitting in an office by yourself and your task is build something that didn't exist before. Okay, go.
Oh, wait. I don't think we can hear you.
Yeah, you might be muted now, Christina.
It doesn't know.
Can you hear us? Oh no.
Christina? Audio cut out? Can you hear us?
Oh.
How many computer scientists does it take?
Don't say it. Don't say it.
I guess while Christina solves that, I just had a thought I can fill time with slightly on what she was saying about that weird moment where, as a programmer, especially during pandemic working from home, you're alone in your room and you're told, please make something that never existed before. That resonated with me. And I'd say that maybe the broader perspective on that laziness I was talking about is you get very, very little direction on a computer science project. And so you need to have some internal motivation. You have to have this drive to make it a better solution by professional standards, by perfectionism, or by, self-motivated greed. How can I make my own job easier? But I'll hand back to Christina. You're
Can you hear me again?
Yes,
Okay,
you're back.
technical difficulties. Did you hear anything of what I said?
We lost you at you'll be alone in a room and be told to do something that didn't exist.
Yeah, I hate that is basically what I was saying. I would encourage people choosing this major to enjoy that. And I'm being a little dramatic. I don't hate that. There are certain types of problem solving that I love and other types of problem solving that I don't. And there are places in the field for all forms of problem solving. I think it's just that the type of work I was doing at the beginning of my career was less of the thing that I like. But as far as in the major, yeah, I do think you have to be somewhat self-motivated, which I heard part of what Post was saying on that. I remember really enjoying classes where there were group projects. And I know I'm probably like in the minority here, but it was the classes where I was assigned a like big solo project that I did not like that. Again, I mean, there's places for both types of people, but I would say that it does help if you like to sit in your room alone and write code.
Yeah, I love to sit in my room alone and write code, so I'm perfect for this. The ideal developer. So yeah, I agree with all of that. The only thing I would add is it really helps if you got to do a lot of detective work when you're a developer. Like it's basically just with debugging. It's really not obvious what's wrong with stuff, and that can also be in like a UX situation too. And being like not super frustrated at your inability to solve something quickly and find the figure out the mystery is really important. If you enjoy figuring out the mystery, it's gonna help you a lot.
That's an interesting way to put it. Like finding the mystery. That's cool. And okay, let's see. Sorry. Okay, what was your experience writing your honors thesis?
I don't think we had those in my time. Did you have to do
that?
Yay!
Oh,
sick. I can contribute. Well, I don't know if my experience on this is universal, but it was extremely. Oh wait, okay. The honors thesis. So I don't know if this is still true, but for the CS major, the honors thesis is just basically you have a capstone project in CS, and you write a sort of a summary of the work you did on that capstone project, because the capstone project is required by the CS department, not the honors college. And so the honors college just makes you write basically a thesis summary of the work you did on that yourself. So the capstone project was legit. It was a lot of work, but the honors thesis, at least for CS in my experience, was like do it in a night, pretty much. It was fairly easy for this major, but there's a big project associated with it.
Okay,
this is the only thing to be aware of.
Thank you for sharing. I was not aware that the honors thesis was such a new thing. Could you give some background on the capstone project then? Because it seems that Christina.
Yeah, I mean, this is
also.
Yeah, I mean, this is some information that this is more related to the CS department in general, that I think any CS majors can look into. But basically, you just in your last year you get I don't know if they give you any choice. I didn't have any choice for mine, but they basically assign you a project with a like industry liaison, and the industry liaison tells you what to do, and you make it's just a big project basically. For my capstone, we had to make an app for some like local government department, fairly innocuous, but yeah, that's what it was like. There's a very difficult group that they have every year where they have to build a autonomous submarine. I was not a fan of the autonomous submarine project because it sounds hard, so I didn't do that. But that's also an option for any ambitious CS majors out there.
Did you do a capstone project?
I did. Yeah, I was going to say, Post, it was new, I think, when you were there, right? Like, you did some kind of project. It wasn't the thing that Oz described.
They started capstone project my year, and I think my year did so badly that they tried to come up with a better structure for it, and eventually settled on that industry pairing.
Yes, I did that thing. It was basically like all academic year, all three quarters, the whole year we were assigned to, as Oz said, some industry partner. Ours was a civilian part of the Navy. We were a team of, I think, 5 people doing development on an existing web app. And yeah, it was pretty innocuous. As far as the actual code, I would say it was a lot of, for me, it was a good experience because it was my first time really doing a lot of things that became part of my day-to-day work, like how to schedule meetings with people, how to write awful boring documentation. I mean, especially because a lot of the partners are like kind of local government or government adjacent. Like in our case, we had to write test cases and then like print them out on paper, and we had like a stack of paper that we had to bring. We had to go on site, I think only 2 times because they were in Corona, which was pretty far away. We had to bring a huge stack of test cases and then like manually go through them for this like big QA process. It was, I guess for me, also a good primer for then working at JPL later, although JPL was much less weird, I will say. But yeah, it was a good experience, development-wise, like not very interesting, but I think it's a good way to get your feet wet and like kind of see what it's like to actually have a job.
Yeah, I don't know if you can relate to this, Christina, but definitely it's the first time I ever had to talk requirements with like a non-technical person. You know? Yeah, that's a big skill. And you know, we had to talk about the app with our industry license, and we had to explain, you know, iOS versus Android and that type of thing. So it's that's very interesting.
Yeah.
My capstone project was before they gave us any guidance, and I was probably in the like 90% of students in my class who picked a very bad idea for a project. So mine was there was a annual competition to write a rock paper scissors bot, like not even a physical robot, just 1,000 times in a row, pick rock paper or scissors against an opponent and try to beat them. And I was like, yeah, I'll make one of those. And I made one, and it did okay. But I was a teenager trying to compete against like computer science faculty, like very, very good programmers. So I ended up having to submit, well, here's competitors' programs from like 12 years ago that I can beat, and I cannot touch anything state of the art. And just the like constant scaling down of the scope of my project until it was, a bit pathetic at the end, I think was part of how they wanted to like take a little more control over what's a reasonable goal for a student at your level. One other mistake that I made was I tried to program it in a programming language I had never worked in before. And they definitely prefer for your capstone that you be, not also having to learn new languages and new syntax, and can make progress from the beginning of the project to the end, which I did not do.
Thank you for sharing. This is all very new to me because, again, I'm not a CS major, but I'm pretty sure that this will be very informative for our students who are watching or will be watching this. So the next part of these questions is your experiences during your time here at Cal State LA. So the first question is, did you participate in any extracurricular or summer programs or internships? And if you did, how did you discover the opportunity, and what was the application process like?
So I'll do a little bit of framing on this section about experiences in Cal State LA, because I definitely want the thing that Christina has to some extent already mentioned in earlier sessions, which is that Christina, myself, and Oz, I think could be fairly said to represent 3 different opinions about each impact on our life. So I don't want to do that, but I know also Christina reasonably well, and I think it's easier to have to mention. I had
Oh no.
Oh my god.
The technical difficulties
he's back.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I don't know what students closed.
Go back 20 seconds.
Great. So I did all the EEP things. I went on every social gathering. I participated in every club. I ran for EEP club every year. I mentored every summer. I was E can do no wrong. And Christina, I would say, took kind of more of a middle of the road approach. Some EEP, some non-EEP social life. Not feeling entirely included in some of the.
Oh no.
He's trying his best. He really is.
Oh, he's back. Maybe he should call in on the phone, like old school.
For that. So,
Should
I'll hand
I?
off until I can call back in.
Okay.
What I'm going to do is then
Okay.
I could share about. Can you guys hear me?
I know.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I'll call back. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Yes, I will try to pick up from what Post was saying. And yeah, I agree with his assessment. I did kind of a mix of EEP things and non-EEP things, and I certainly wasn't the most active in extracurricular activities, just overall. I participated in some student organizations here and there, but I wasn't super enmeshed in any of them. Like I was about to say I wasn't on the board of any orgs. That may not be true, but there wasn't any particular campus extracurricular activity that was like my thing. I did do an internship though. I did 2 summertime things that were related to my career ultimately. The first one wasn't really an internship. It was just kind of like working with a professor in the summer. I don't know. She needed a couple students to work on some research thing. It's very vague. My memory of this is very vague. I remember using some Java GUI library to do something involving astronomy, with Redshift. I don't know. I didn't know what I was doing, but it was a good experience in just trying to learn something totally new and weird. And then I did for my last summer an internship at JPL. And the way I found out about it was actually through attending a meeting of the student org. So I was a member of our campus chapter of the Association for Computing Machinery, or ACM. And again, I wasn't super involved with ACM, but I was on their mailing list. I'd go to their meetings sometimes, and I remember they sent an invitation for this event because they were going to have someone from JPL come and talk to the club and kind of give a presentation about internship opportunities. And I was like, please sign me up. And I mean, that is really how I got my internship. I heard about it through that meeting. I don't think that we applied, they didn't have us apply that same day, but as a result of going to that presentation, I applied. There might have been an interview. I honestly can't recall. It's been way too long. But yeah, then I got it, and I was there for the summer, and that is probably part of how I ended up working for JPL later, but not directly.
It's great that you mentioned ACM, because I know that actually one of the EEPsters is president of ACM this year.
You know their name?
Yes, their name is Alvin.
I don't know.
If you know, he's in his 3rd year currently, so I'm not sure if you've met him, Oz. So yeah, I thought I might share that because that's pretty relevant.
But Post, if you're back now, you were part of ACM, right?
Yeah. I was, I want to say, secretary of the chapter. The only thing, it's been like 15 years. I remember us doing a little bit of charity work to help try and host an event for getting more female identifying students to participate in computer science and electrical engineering programs. And that was run by an off-campus organization, which I think later became Girls Do Code.
There's so many. There's also Women Who Code. I don't know.
Yeah. In any case, it was it was a fairly small organization on campus back in the mid 2000s. But I'm really glad to hear that the local ACM chapter is still thriving.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Alvin is actually watching the stream.
Oh, great.
Shout out to Alvin.
Right, and he also mentioned that the capstone project is still very similar to what Christina and Oz described.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm. And
All right, so Oz, I believe you've yet to answer the question.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, pretty much what they said is probably the best path in terms of getting the relevant experience for industry. I didn't do quite any of that, but it's listen to them. Yeah.
Okay. Andrew, would you like to continue your discussion about this question, or?
Sure. So we were just talking about extracurricular activities, and I'm sorry, could I just ask you to repeat the question?
So the question was that, did you participate in any extracurricular activities or summer programs / internships? And if you did, how did you discover the opportunity? And what was the application process like?
Gotcha. So I definitely applied for some like industry experience summer programs. I didn't get any of them. I was honestly still, I think, like a bit of a mess of a human being while I was in EEP. I had a lot to figure out. I had some interpersonal challenges, feeling comfortable communicating with other people without being defensive, without taking personally having made mistakes. There's a lot of like skills that you need in order to work with adults and to work with non-technical people, which I definitely didn't have. So my time in EEP was definitely much more campus oriented than reaching out into the world. So I, did the mentorship opportunities for incoming students. I took art classes and dance classes during the summer to, try to broaden my horizons. I'm trying to think if there are any. I definitely didn't have a great focus on a career. I expected to go to grad school after I graduated, so I really wasn't thinking about jobs when I was in school, and I don't think that hurt me because I definitely wasn't able to jump into being a professional programmer right out of college like both Christina and Oz did. I did, after I graduated, spend several more years doing other things before I ended up as a programmer. But I guess I would just say that that's a perfectly acceptable course too. You will, find your way through. You'll have a better understanding of yourself and what you love and what you want out of a job and what your relationship is to, do I care about money? Do I care about socializing with other people? Do I want a job where I'll be very much left alone? It's okay if you don't know. You can get a computer science degree and not immediately become a programmer and still end up there if that's where you belong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think what you're mentioning is great because a lot of EEP students are very fixed on their careers, and if there is like one or two students who aren't, they kind of feel like they should have such a goal or like that pinpoint like future plan. But as we have seen, a lot of those experiences do differ among EEP students. So thank you for that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's
Yeah, I would say I want to add to that. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Andrew made me realize something, which is that I don't know. I think this is, at least for myself, and I think other EEP students can relate to this, is I was a little panicked about, after college, just being like 17, 18. It's kind of like a weird age. I mean, it makes sense that most EEPsters go to grad school, because going straight into industry at 17, 18 is tough. It truly is just tough. But not because you can't get a job. It's actually the easiest part is getting a job, because you have a computer science degree. It's like this industry is just overflowing with opportunity right now. So it's you don't actually have to be stressed whatsoever, I think, in my opinion, about getting a job in this industry, at least to start. Yeah. I don't know if you agree with any of that, Andrew, but that's
No,
what I
definitely. Especially, like, I'm curious if it'll stay that way after pandemic, but programmers are in really high demand. Every company needs a website. They need ways to sell their tools online. They need ways to interface with other businesses without meeting in person. There's a big, big push globally to having better technology as part of every industry. Construction, healthcare, it doesn't matter. So everyone's hiring programmers.
Yeah. So, I mean, you could probably make it easier for yourself to get a job quickly if you have, like, a lot of hackathons on your resume, for example. But it is by no means necessary.
I do want to pick up one of the things that Oz said there, which is there is something a little weird about entering the workforce pejorative way. But the challenging part, I think, of being a teenager, or in your early 20s even, and trying to set out on a career where your similar aged peers are 22, 24, 25, 30. And it's maybe there's a question later in the panel where it's better to talk about that, but there is definitely a trade-off of, if you focus really hard on getting a career, you may put yourself in a tough spot on, great, I've got a career. Now what? What else do I need to be happy? And so there's definitely some things that you can be learning and worrying about while you're in EEP, besides getting a job that can contribute to your long-term happiness. We're getting off the trail of the original question here, but I hope we get a chance to talk about that too.
A little bit, but no worries. We wanted this to be a natural conversation. And we do have a question later on that we'll ask about how your experience has impacted your experience, as well as any challenges you faced because of being an EEPster.
Perfect. We'll pick that up then.
Yes. And so this is now going back to your career. So given that computer science is such a broad career that encompasses multiple specific fields, at what point did you realize the specific field that you wanted to pursue? And could you give like a little description of what that is?
Sure. So I buried the lead a little bit on this when I mentioned that after I graduated, I spent a few years doing something else. I went to law school and tried being a lawyer for a few years. And I passed the bar. I am a lawyer. And I realized after doing that for several years that I didn't like it. And Christina was actually the person who persuaded me, consider being a programmer again. You got a computer science degree. You worked very briefly as a programmer before you went to law school. If you're not happy as a lawyer, consider going back to that. So Christine introduced me to a recruiter who was able to get me a job that I had for several years, working for dating website companies. And I really enjoyed the lifestyle and I really enjoyed the peers. But definitely in several years working there, I didn't really love the work. And I was convinced that being a programmer was right for me because, you know, I never got yelled at compared to being a lawyer. Was honestly a really big part of it. Like just the casual like hostility and cruelty of that profession got under my skin. I'm a little conflict averse. And programmers, by contrast, I feel get treated very well. One of the anecdotes that I like to mention is that if you work at the White House, whatever your job is, there's a dress code, and pretty much everyone has to wear a suit when they go to the White House. You know, high formal wear, except the programmers. There's some programmers who work at the White House. They don't have a dress code. They show up wearing, you know, sweatpants and a dress shirt if they want. And the reason for that is programmers have so many good career opportunities and know that being like overly controlled and having arbitrary rules is just a bad sign. So kind of collectively as a profession, we're a group of people who don't take a lot of nonsense. You know, if you get mistreated, you can leave and go find another job, even from the White House. So I knew I liked all of that about being a programmer. It felt, you know, much more respected than lawyer, which I was raised thinking, you know, doctor, lawyer, they're the most respected professions. But I feel like lawyers get a lot less respect than programmers now. To the real heart of the question, though, the specific field in software engineering that I love and that I'm drawn to, I really didn't discover until I was a programmer for about 4 or 5 years. So I really enjoy building tools for people who are trying to do a complicated thing, and then finding a way to make that tool, make that process simple for them. And there wasn't a lot of that making a dating website. There wasn't a lot of that working for a company that sold airplane tickets and tried to upsell you on buying a resort stay at your destination. I worked for several companies where I liked the profession, I liked the lifestyle, but the product didn't excite me. And then Hero Forge was the first time that I got to do kind of this creative problem solving around how do we achieve this goal of, I have, you know, a character that I imagine. He's an orc with a scar over one eye, and he wears a tutu, and he carries a hammer. That's a very open-ended problem. How do we make buttons you can click on a website that let you make that? So after bouncing around in a number of different like sub-professions of computer science, admittedly most of them in web development, UX design, and in particular UX design around 3D objects, I didn't realize until, you know, I was 27 that like, ooh, I'm passionate about this. This is a fun problem space. I feel like I already rambled long enough, so I'll hand off there.
Okay, I'm very excited to answer this question because I'm staring at the written question, which is, at what point in your academic career did I discover the specific field? Never. In fact, when I was still a CS major at Cal State, I remember after my first web development class, I was thinking, web development is the last thing that I'd want to do professionally. And then I graduated and I became a web developer. I don't know. Honestly, for me, I think I am still trying to figure out what is my niche in my field. And this is after working for 10 years in in this same field, which I guess in a sense is longer even than Post has been doing it, given the whole lawyer detour.
True.
You know, I was a web developer for 2 different companies for a total of like 3.5 years. And kind of like Post said, I enjoyed the work. I didn't really like the product. A little bit, I liked it a little more at my first job. I was working for Chegg, which I don't know if they're still around, with the textbook rental website. Okay. I actually never used it, but I worked for them. And then my second job, I was working for access.com, which is the ticketing website. And I'm sure everyone hates them because, you know, it's like Ticketmaster. No one wants to pay those fees. And yeah, I liked the lifestyle. I liked my colleagues. Like for me, this is probably not surprising to anyone here based on what I've already said. For me, the people are always very important to me. If I like the people that I'm working with and working for, then I can get way more into what I'm doing, even if I don't love the thing itself. If the community is good, if there's like good camaraderie, you know, then it makes working a long day or working on the weekend better, which don't do that. But anyway, sorry, I'm trying to figure out what else to answer with this question. What else was this question to answer? So I'm not a web dev now. As I said at the beginning, I'm kind of a jack of all trades, and part of that is that I work for a startup, and so we only have 10 people. We're a science startup, but I'm the only person in the company with a software background. So there's certain things that just fall in my lap because I'm the most qualified to do it, even if I'm not actually qualified to do it, right? I'm also kind of our systems administrator, and I do people's password resets and set up email accounts and really tedious chores like that just because I'm the best person for the job. Hopefully those things will change as we grow and hire more humans. But when I worked at JPL, which was for 5 whole years, that for me was a big shift for my career. Like I did start at JPL as more of a developer, not a web dev per se, but I was building kind of back-end services for a data management software system. And you know, this was for earth science data products, right? Like this is kind of what led to me being in my current job. I mean, it's different. My current job, sorry, I'm fumbling because there's a lot of detail and I'm trying to cut it down. My current job is a startup, but we formed the company out of a group of people who left JPL, essentially. My CEO was the chief scientist on the project at JPL, and he decided a few years back to work on kind of migrating out of the NASA JPL umbrella, and so that's what happened. Anyway, I don't know. I often feel a little paralyzed, honestly, because I don't know, like if for some reason my job vanished tomorrow, I don't know what I would want to do instead. I feel like I have just continued to get lucky and kind of leapfrog from one thing to the next. Like even within JPL, like I had some career shifts during those 5 years. Like I was on one project for the first 3 years that I really did not enjoy. And then came to work with the people that I work with today, which was like a huge improvement for me. But if that went away, I don't know what I'd want to do. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is that's okay too. It's probably too high of an expectation to think that you'll know exactly what you want to do while you're a student, but you might. I mean, it sounds like Oz did, and that's awesome. I wish that I had that. But if you don't have that, it's also okay. You can still work for NASA. Yeah.
I'm firmly in the camp that it's not that important to be passionate about what you do. The people that surround you. This is not so relevant in COVID, unfortunately, but hopefully we get over this hump. and that's far more important that you're near people you care about, and with people you can tolerate. I that's been my personal experience, that what you're actually working on as a programmer, whether it's startup, corporate, enterprise software, agile software, it doesn't really matter that much. Like if you're good at it and you like it, it'll be fine for me personally. And it's just way more important that you're with the right people.
Okay, so this next question. Oh, sorry, Andrew, did you answer this?
I was just going to add on that I completely agree about the importance of liking your team and liking the process of problem solving. And while I was definitely right that during pandemic and working remotely, which maybe programmers will just forever be working remotely now. Like I know a lot of companies are going to hire developers remotely indefinitely, and like you can go into the office if you live near one and want to. But even despite that change, just enjoying the people that you're meeting with, feeling respected by them, feeling respect for them, finding their sense of humor compatible with yours, that is incredibly valuable. Like I think I would rather get paid 30% less and be with a team that I loved rather than, get paid more than I'm being paid already if it was working with people who stressed me out.
Okay, so the other two questions that we're going to ask what kind of relates to this and has been a bit answered. It was, with trends in computing changing so rapidly, would you want to switch to a different part of CS, such as game development, machine learning, data science, UI design, etc.? If you could, and if so, why? But I think that this conversation has shown that a lot of the considerations is actually, as you said, the people around you and not so much the work. So would you guys be comfortable with skipping those questions?
I mean, I'll give it short shrift because you're right. We did already talk about it a little. The discipline you pick, the way I would think about it is there's some disciplines where you're not just going to like pick it up casually. You need some specific domain knowledge. So like machine learning is probably like a very, very challenging, like brain surgery sort of specialty, as compared to like, just being a general care doctor. Like you need to do additional years of prep, is my impression. But for a lot of the other common computer science roles, UI design, being a back-end developer or a front-end developer, if you have a computer science degree and you have good computer science fundamentals, you can absolutely pick up a new language and transition from one to the other. But if you are drawn to one of those very, very difficult niche specialties, if something excites you about, high throughput database design, or, if data science appeals to you from you're really into statistics and trying to apply that other domain knowledge, that's definitely important. But if you're just building solutions in a common programming language, JavaScript, Python, what have you, at that point I would say that it doesn't entirely matter what the solution is that you're building, as long as you like the team you're working with.
Yeah, and if I could add on, and I'll also try to keep it short, but I think this is valuable. One of the other questions that we kind of skipped over, but this ties in with what Post was saying, you know, if there were classes that I wish I had taken, and I wish I had taken any AI or machine learning classes at all. To be honest, I avoided it because at the time there was one professor teaching those classes and I hated him. I can't.
I got bad news for you. Who was it?
Abbott.
Yeah, he's still the only one teaching those classes.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So that's a no-go.
You know what? Just do it anyway. I wish I'd done it anyway, to be honest with you. Because I know it's probably not worth it.
It's not. It's not.
Okay. Well, at least
Don't do it.
The thing is, like,
just like, self-learn. Don't go to Abbott. Just self-learn machine learning if you love it that much. There's a great,
I guess for me the thing is, I don't even know, because I've never even had an intro to it. I've never even had a 101, and it's this thing on a pedestal for me now that I'm like, well, I don't know anything about that. I can't get into that now. It's too late. All these other like kids know about it, and anyway, I don't need it. The other thing that I would say is, I mean, data science, like if there's some other questions on here about where things might be headed in the future. And I mean, my career has shifted pretty radically from web dev to like data management and kind of touching on data science and like lots of big data problems, right? And I didn't have any like formal education in that. I don't know that we even had classes in that back in my day. So yeah, I don't know. That's what I would say as well. Like if you feel drawn, as Plus was saying, if you feel drawn to data science, it is probably advantageous to actually like make an effort to learn that. I'm sort of picking some of it up as I go along, but that's different. It would help if I'd taken a class. Maybe I will. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like it could be hard because the professors are like really, like you were saying, it really decides if you like a class or if you want to take it, and so that's hard. That you really want to learn it, but you couldn't. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Oh, do you want to go, Hope?
Or where are we?
I could do this one if you want.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Please.
How has your experience with computer science impacted other aspects of your life, either positively or negatively? Like, for example, has it made you more perceptive, observant, attentive? Has it changed your mindset or the way you approach problems in any way?
Oh, that's a great question. So there's a really good history professor at Cal State LA, Professor Endy, and he gave a speech once at an EEP event talking about how the most important thing about your degree isn't the job that it gets you, it's the way it teaches you to think about the world. And his example, I think, is really good and illustrative. Like, you can understand it without having done the journey yet. So he encourages people to get a degree in history, even art history, completely knowing that you're not likely to get a job in art history. And he says that's not the point. It gives you a broad context of why people made choices they made throughout history. And it gives you a unique perspective, different from anyone else in the room who hasn't studied art history, on answering these big why questions. So the example he gave is, you notice, and this is about how it changes your perceptions. Art history is all about how people perceive the world. And he gave the example of how in the 1850s you started getting this art movement out of the West that was moving away from crisp, clear, beautiful lines and using blurry abstractions. And the reason for that, if you study art history, is because people were riding trains for the first time. It was suddenly becoming this common experience to see the world zipping past you faster than you could see on horseback. And this blur was interesting to people. It was all the rage. And he was saying that without an art history degree, you wouldn't be able to understand some of the sensory history of what does a blur effect do? How does it make people feel? What does it harken back to? What will people think if you have a blurry part of your company logo? And that perception on how you look at the world absolutely changes when you get a computer science degree. I remember getting a driver's license for the first time, and I was in, my junior year, and I was now a computer science major, I think. And I remember sitting at a stoplight, kind of bored, driving into Cal State LA, and a thought popped into my head, which was, I wonder what the algorithm is. I wonder what the rules are that drive the traffic lights. And now instead of being bored, I'm sitting there at the stoplight looking around trying to figure out, are there any inputs? What are the outputs of this system? And I noticed that there's these, fresh, the dry asphalt has all these circles of like recently poured asphalt on them. And I go, oh, those are probably some sort of sensors that they put under these lanes to tell if a car pulls up. And then that's going into some box somewhere around here that's deciding, okay, if you get an input on these sensors, here's what you should do with the lights. And I realized that Professor Andy was right. And computer science wasn't just this set of tools that I was going to use to get paid for doing tasks for someone. It was changing my understanding of the world around me. And it made me feel like I could look at something that I knew nothing about. I've never taken any classes on, civil architecture and how you build streets and what the ideas are. But I've got context to ask questions about it. If I get curious about something I know nothing about, I can start by asking familiar questions. How does the programming of this system work? What do I know about the system because of how computer science has to work? And then I can ask intelligent questions about, well, what are the goals of building a good intersection? And now I can have a conversation with a civil architect, knowing nothing about their field. So, yeah, it's going to change the way you see the world around you. Every degree would. This is just going to be the degree that gets you to ask, what's the logic behind things? How do you build a system to do this phenomenon I see in front of me?
Okay, I just want to hop in and say that one of the CS majors mentioned that there are other professors teaching the course that Dr. Abbott was teaching, so there is that
That's
update
great.
now.
That's got to be new. He was the only one teaching it when I was in school.
Yeah.
That's really good news.
And also some students also really love Dr. Endy, as who Andrew mentioned.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Yes. So our next question is, did you face any challenges because you're an EEPster, which ties back to things that we discussed previously? So if you guys want to elaborate on.
I mean, I think all three of us can write an essay about this. So I'll let Andrew write the first essay.
Okay. So this is definitely a familiar one. I think you've probably heard this from a lot of students, but the biggest thing that's different about being an EEPster is, for sure, when you graduate, you're younger than other people. In my instance, I went to law school, and I was 18, 19, 20 in law school. And that was challenging for me to socialize in that context, to make friends with 25-year-olds who after class are going out to a bar, and I can't get into a bar because I'm not 21. lawyer culture also does a lot of drinking, like official university events always had alcohol involved. And they realized, oh God, we've got a student who's under 21. We're going to have to start carding at these events. And I told them, like, don't card everyone else. Just put up a picture of me and say, don't serve him. But for legal reasons, they couldn't do that. So I definitely struggled trying to be treated as like a legitimate advisor as a lawyer when I graduated law school and was trying to practice at 22 or 23. Because all my clients were older than me, and they kind of wanted an older lawyer. They wanted like a, you know, the mental image they had of who would be their advisor was someone with graying hair. So my options were either go be in some back room somewhere at a law firm, not interacting with clients who would be put off by my age, or find unusual clients as a solo practitioner who were okay with it and for some reason disliked that normal image of a lawyer. But it was a struggle. It definitely made that particular career path harder. And there are other EEPsters who have done very, very well as a lawyer, and they'll come and talk on a panel about being a lawyer. Obviously, it didn't work out for me, so I went back into computer science. One of the other challenges with being an EEPster that I want to touch on in my essay is, and this one takes a little longer and it's a little subtler to like unpack. But my identity was definitely colored a little bit by how the world kept telling me that I'm special and this smart special boy. And that's really positive. It's a thing that a lot of us do celebrate. We have this thing that's treated as virtuous. But that also sets you up for some fragility in your sense of self later. If too much of your self-esteem is built on I'm smart, I'm good, or especially dangerously, I'm smart and I'm young, well, you're going to be in your 30s someday. And there's going to be people in your profession who are, coming up beneath you, and they are the young, brilliant new force. You set yourself up for an identity crisis if your self-esteem, if your sense of self comes too much from just your current circumstances of being a very above average teenager. So I would definitely say that there was a little bit of a challenge in the culture of EEP, which our advisors did a good job of pushing back against, of trying to say, hey, don't make all of your heroes be smartest people in history. Like, try to read a book about, Mahatma Gandhi, try to read a book about the Dalai Lama, try to read a book about someone who is humble and great, not for their intelligence, so that you don't build up this complex about the only source of goodness inside yourself is that you're smart. Value being kind, value being thoughtful, value being a good listener. So those are the two challenges that I'm only going to take those two.
Yeah, I mean, the second thing that you talked about is one of those things that I think probably affects every EEPster to some degree, and it's something I certainly didn't think about or didn't even realize that I had been feeling until many years after graduation, and then, I mean, honestly, it's one of the reasons that it's good that so many of us do still keep in touch after the fact. I mean, even over a decade later. I feel like at a certain point we all got old enough and we started having these conversations and realizing like, oh yeah, Yeah, we're all kind of feeling like that, huh? I mean, for me, I did go straight into my career right after I graduated, which I guess Oz did as well. But I was 19, so I was maybe like slightly older than other EEPsters might be when they finish, but still very young, right? I mean, we had a kegerator in our office. I don't even really know what that is, to be honest. I'm not like enough of a beer person. It is a beer thing, and I couldn't even drink the beer that we had on tap in our own office, right? Silly things like that happen, especially when you work at startups. But I think for me, like I relate a lot more to the more abstract kind of the thing Post was talking about of, when you have spent so many years of your life being told that you're smart and being told that you're ahead of other people, you're ahead of your peers, it's weird then to have this transition. Well, first of all, like this transition to a career from school, which I mean, that's not unique to EEP, but maybe the way that it feels for EEPsters is a little different from how it might feel for someone that wasn't raised as a gifted student, being told that they're the best for their whole life, right? I personally had a bit of a kind of a crisis. I was going to say midlife crisis. I'm not even at midlife, so I don't know. A crisis of realizing, oh my goodness, like I've been a student my whole life. My identity was to be a student, to be an EEP student, to be a gifted student. Like I want to get straight A's. I want to work hard, study hard. Like I want to just really focus on learning. And then I mean, the end goal of that is to graduate, and I did. And I didn't know what to do then. It was weird. I was like, well, wait, I finally got the thing that I wanted. I got the degree. I'm done, and now I don't know what to do. I don't know how to operate in this like new phase of life where the rubric for success and for how good of a person you are or whatever is not based on like a letter grade. That transition was hard for me, and again, it probably is for a lot of people, but I imagine it might be even more acute for EEPsters because you're young when that transition is happening, especially if you just go straight into a career and you're not in grad school. Maybe this is why a lot of EEPsters go to grad school. It kind of delays that transition. What to say about it? Sorry, I'm rambling. I guess I would say that it over time has gotten to be less of a thing, and I now feel like I'm pretty comfortable with where I'm at. I mean, I should hope so. It's been a decade. The other kind of funny thing that I just remembered that has been weird at times is I've had interns who report to me that were the same age as me or older than me.
Wow.
That's weird.
Mhm.
Yeah.
My turn? Okay. Yeah, so definitely the second and third, everything Andrew said about the socialization and the identity. I've been through multiple years of therapy for both of those things. So yeah, definitely a real issue. I would say that's definitely a big thing. I had a very unusual experience in EEP compared to most people, which Andrew wants me to share. Whatever, I'll share it. So I even within EEP, I felt sort of like EEP is already sort of different, and then within EEP, I was also different. I was the only person in my year that went straight into industry. Everyone else went to grad school, and on top of that, I was the second youngest person in my year, which in 13 versus like 15 is a huge difference. So I very, 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 very much struggled in every way. So, but I think that's a very particular experience for me. I'm sure that most people listening or watching this are more in the normal group. But if you're not, take care of yourself. Yeah. Because it's like, I think of it as this: EEP's already different. So being different within a different group, like I'm not trying to be like entitled or special, but it's just, it's really tough. So you have to be really, really careful about that. And yeah, and talk to your parents. I think a lot of people in EEP, I mean, I don't know, some people in EEP over rely on their parents, some people under rely, but yeah, talk to your parents. I don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's it. Andrew, we can't hear you.
Oh, I totally forgot that you guys can tell when I'm mute and unmute. It only just occurred to me that's how you keep knowing when I'm thinking about saying something. The parent thing, I hope we get an opportunity to come back to. But definitely thank you, Oz, for speaking to the topic that it is okay if you find yourself in EEP and you're not sure if EEP is right for you, you're not sure if it's meeting your needs. I try and keep in touch with a lot of EEP graduates, and Oz may have felt alone in his year with that experience. But every year there's several EEPsters who feel like they had needs that weren't met, that they didn't integrate well with their peers, that they felt excluded in some way. And part of that is just because teenagers suck. Yeah. Like, as good as we try and make EEPsters be, we still make mistakes, we still hurt each other, we still form cliques and be exclusionary. And I don't want to excuse that behavior. There are people, who, in my cohort, who, accidentally did things, or maybe even maliciously did things that made me feel excluded. And I know it was important for me when I was an EEP student to hear that it wasn't my fault if those things were happening. Like, I'll give an example. I did a thing when I was a freshman in EEP that I found out a year or two later, literally everyone in my year hated, and no one told me, and it was like making me weird and awkward and socially ostracized. Every time I saw people, I asked if they'd like a hug. It was a little childish. It was a little awkward. I was reading the social situation badly. What was my point about that? I remember it being very important when I heard from an alumni who graduated like a decade before I had, that they made those mistakes and they felt ostracized, and there were people who they thought they hated in their year. And it's not your fault. You will be okay. You're not a freak. Like, whatever combination of things you've internalized from feeling excluded, that happens to EEPsters too. You do still belong. You can still make the most of the program. Don't think you deserve any less of an experience just because the fit hasn't felt right for you.
Yeah, that's really great advice. And is he talking?
I was done. Go ahead.
Okay, there you go. Oh, am I speaking this? Okay, so that kind of transitions into our final question. Are there any last thoughts or comments, or just like a summary of the final pieces of advice for EEPsters and CS, or EEPsters in general? I know that like the past conversation was like the essay portion, but maybe like the thesis portion, the thesis sentence, not the actual thesis. Thank you very much. Any last thoughts?
Sure. I would summarize my advice as being in 3 parts. Number 1, try to believe the people in your life who tell you you should try something, try some new things, expand your horizons, take classes you're bad at. All of that is just about trying not to rely too much on the I'm smart and the only validation I get is when I succeed at being the smartest. The sooner you can get out of that, the better. And sucking at something is the first step at being kind of okay at something. Like it's okay to do things that aren't coming naturally to you. So that's one. Number two, if you don't read the textbook, if you don't do the assignment, if you don't try because you'd rather fail at the thing that I dealt with, I'd rather fail because I didn't try my hardest than try my hardest and fail. And that was kind of an excuse that made me just not do assignments that I felt I wasn't good at. The only person you're cheating is yourself. It's good to get over your fear of failure and still be willing to try so you can learn from that experience. So do your homework. Even if you do a bad job at it, still turn in something. And then three, I'll say it pretty explicitly, care about your mental health. There are therapy resources available through campus. I'm a big supporter of seeing a therapist in your adult life. It doesn't even have to be because anything is wrong. It's just you see a doctor periodically to make sure you're in good health. Talk to someone to make sure your mental health is good. That'll be important for the rest of your life, I think.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I think this conversation really highlighted a lot of the issues that many, if not most, if not all, EEPsters really struggle with throughout their experience here and into their future. If Christina has anything to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I mean, first of all, I agree wholeheartedly with what Post said. Post is actually I think you were the first person, Post, to suggest that I seek therapy. And I mean, it was many years ago and I still see a therapist regularly. So yeah, especially in light of the pandemic, it's been a wild ride for people, and it is important to take care of the brain parts. And just more practically, I would recommend, talk to your professors. I know that's hard for a lot of students. It can feel embarrassing, I think, especially when you are being told by so many other people in your life that you're awesome and you're special and you're so smart, you don't even need help. But, sometimes you do need help, and that's okay. Like, go to the office hours, tell them that you're having a hard time if you're having a hard time. I had a lot of friends in EEP who would admit to me that they were struggling, but they would never go and admit that to the professor. They would never get help, and they were just sort of stuck. But, if you work with the professor and they're willing to work with you and they're not Dr. Abbott, sorry, then there might be, something you can do. They're human beings too, and most of the time they will work with you. And sorry, I really don't mean to throw Dr. Abbott under the bus. Maybe he'll see this, and I'm sure that he is actually a great guy. And if I'd gone to his hours more, maybe he could have helped me.
Okay, and I do not know what happened to Oz. He is not in the meeting anymore. So I guess this is the end, and I will send him a follow-up email. So thank you so much for coming. This insight was, I think a lot of EEPsters need to hear this, even though they're not CS majors, and it was very, very helpful to know that, yes, a lot of EEPsters go through this.
Yeah.
So, one last thing. Would you guys be open to me sharing your emails or other contact information to students who request it?
Yeah,
Please
for
do.
sure.
All right, great.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. So, yeah. So,
So again, thank you
Thank you so much.
for coming.
Thank you so much for putting together this panel. Your EEP Club year is doing an astonishing job of reaching out to alumni. It's very impressive, and I hope your fellow classmates appreciate how much work you're doing for all of your benefits.
Oh, this is awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I guess that concludes this panel. Actually, we have Amy and James to thank for connecting with the alumni, though. So shout out to them as well, and shout out to Sasha for streaming this on YouTube.